Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our third NGG webinar. My name is Samah Rawahi, and I'll be moderating today's session with two exceptional Omani artists, Rawan Mahrooqi and Rayyan Hinai, as our panelists. So this is a 1-hour session. We will be recording the session and sharing it on the Anglo-Omani Society website. As we go through the session, please feel free to submit any questions you have in the chat box, and we will answer them during the Q&A session. Before we start off, I would like to invite Al-Ghayth Al-Harthi, who's the NGG Oman team leader. He'll be giving us a brief introduction about the society and the new generation group. Al-Ghayth.
Thank you, Samah, and big welcome to Rawan, Mahrooqi, and Rayyan Hinai to our webinar today, and I welcome you all, our guests. Very happy to see you again. Very happy to see some names that we've seen in our first and second webinars as well, and we always welcome you in with us in the Anglo-Omani Society. I just wanted to give a brief about the society, since many of our guests they don't have a long experience or a previous experience with the Anglo-Omani Society and the new generation group. So shortly and very briefly, the society was formed in 1976 with the blessing of His late Majesty Sultan Qaboos, peace be upon him. And since then, the society started working towards its objectives of fostering the relationship between Oman and the UK in different aspects, including education and culture, politics and economics. And we've been very honored as a society to achieve many things that we consider as areas where the two countries have come together and built great stuff also together. The society is basically based in London, and we have a large team of both Omanis and British people working in Oman and in London together collaboratively to deliver the objectives of the society. Then we also have the New Generation Group, which is a group that aims to continue Britain's and Oman's historic friendship into the younger generation between the two countries, and it also serves the same or similar objectives, rather more targeted into youth and the education sector, and also the culture between the two countries. In Oman, we've been basically active since the creation of the New Generation Group, and there is this big event that we consider our main event for the New Generation Group, which we call the annual delegation, which started in 2013. We're hoping that the annual delegation will take place in Oman next. We're hoping to have it in October, but since the current circumstances are very exceptional, and we basically cannot go against the instructions by the Supreme Committee of responsible for COVID-19. So we don't know exactly when is this going to happen, but we're looking forward to it, and we're looking forward also to have you engaging with us more often, and we welcome you all again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al-Ghayth. So for today's webinar, we'll be talking art with Rawan and Rayyan, and deep dive into who they are as artists and discuss some of their art pieces. I will briefly first start to introduce both of them, and then Rawan and Rayyan will take over. So Rawan is a multidisciplinary contemporary artist, and her work focuses on the female experience in the Arabian Gulf. She's also the founder of Makan Studios, a first of its kind local art school that offers a community for the arts in Muscat. Rayyan, on the other hand, is a junior architect and artist. She developed an interest in art at an early stage in her life and values all forms of creative craftsmanship ranging from textiles to woodcraft and architectural elements. Welcome, Rawan and Rayyan, to today's session, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Okay, so we'll start off with Rawan. Rawan, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Rawan's going to take us through her art journey and discuss some of her art pieces with us. Before Rawan begins, I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions for Rawan throughout her presentation, feel free to submit them in the chat box.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you to the Anglo-Omani Society for hosting this. It's a really lovely opportunity. And yeah, let's do it. So, yeah. So I think I will start by talking about my first steps in my art career, or the first artworks that I've created. And this one is, I would say, the first and the one that kind of made me become really interested in becoming an artist and wanting to pursue it full time. So this was part of the Young Emerging Artist Prize in Style Gallery, and it was the first one. It's an annual prize, and it was in 2015. The artwork is titled Holy Hands 2. It's an installation, and it's a commentary on women's dress. The current, which is all black mostly, and the traditional, which is really colorful. And this is another shot of the installation. So I've always known that I wanted to talk about this. I always knew that this is where I want to go with my art, and this was the first step. And my work is conceptual and contemporary, and it kind of switches between things like this, which is like more of an installation, photography, video, and things that are more of illustration and animation type work. So this was also on display for the prize as well. And here, unfortunately, I had some videos that are not playing, but they were animations, hand-drawn animations, very early on from 2016. And in those animations, I'm talking about two topics that are still very important for me. And that's why I included this in the presentation. And they are hair and body autonomy. And I will explain that a bit more as we go on. This is some of my illustrative work, and this was from 2016. There are two different artworks. They're not one artwork, but basically this work kind of became famous, I guess you can say, locally or within the region. It was circulated a lot, and it's kind of a rebellious take on I don't want to say traditions, but a rebellious take on my body, and who can tell me what I can do with my body, and where does that line stop, where does it begin, and just trying to understand all of that. This is another one, and this talks about the taboo of showing your face online, which when I was younger, it was much more different. Now I can see that things have changed, but it's still there. So if in real life I meet you, you will see my face, but it's kind of a taboo for me to put my face online on social media or whatever. So I always thought that was funny. And so it says, don't show your face. I don't want anyone to know you have one. And it's kind of also like a modern take on our traditions as Arabs. So things like burqa and how we dress, and how that kind of translated into the digital world, or the modern world. I hope I'm making sense. And then another artwork from 2018. This was an installation and an exhibition that I curated actually at Style Gallery. And I had two works in this exhibition. This was the first one. And I put this here because a lot of my work is also inspired by Quran and Hadith. And I really love to work with that. This one in particular is inspired by the story of the black stone, or Hajar al-Aswad, and how when it came down from heaven, it was white as snow and it was turned black with the sins of mankind. And so I just drew the correlation between that and a woman's dress. And yeah, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. The other work from the same exhibition is this installation. And this was titled Attempts. And it just basically talks about the relationship with prayer. And I feel like it's something quite private we don't really talk about, but yet we are expected to pray 5 times a day. And I just find that there is some kind of emotion there, whether it's desperation, you're asking for something, you want to keep something, so you're desperate to keep that thing and you're praying for that. And yeah, so I've always found that relationship of prayer very interesting. And the mats go up. It's quite a big installation, actually. And yeah. For that same installation, we took a few photographs around it. And the photographs are kind of like, one of them is this, and the other is like me standing here praying, maybe in an opposite direction. And it's just, again, about the relationship of prayer and how it could mean different things for different people. And yeah, it's just that intimate time. These works, the photographs, were shown in Tunis in Shiftuhunna Art Festival. And now I come back to more recent work, 2018. And if you can see, the same theme kind of comes back, which is the faceless image. And yeah, so I was exploring that in 2016-15, and I came back to it again in 2018. But this time I used photography, and this work was all posted on my social media, which I love because I love to see how people react and interact with the work. I think it very much is a part of the work. And so I chose to do it this way and just Photoshop my face off, because it's kind of like a shocking image. So when you're scrolling through your feed and you see it, and you're confused, what's happening here, what's wrong, and so the comments on it were really interesting to me. And my point with that is I think it's kind of ridiculous that you can see my face online, but you can't see it. I mean, you can see my face in person, but you can't see it online. So again, it's kind of like starting the conversation as to why is it a taboo? Why doesn't it make sense? And why is it okay for my brother or my male colleagues to put their picture and it's not an issue, whereas for me it's a big issue? And that's just one of the things that I kind of like to talk about. And we did a few of these photographs. They're all like me and doing random things like grocery shopping or whatever, but it looks like a normal picture, normal setting, but the face is not there. So it kind of became a part of it really became a reoccurring theme in my artwork. It kind of became also like a part of my identity. And this was, again, in like an art residency I did last year in Leipzig. And yeah, so I kind of decided to post all of my pictures like this. So it's kind of like it's a continuing artwork. Another example of work that is inspired from my culture and my surroundings is this work that's inspired by a hadith that says that if you talk about someone behind their back, it's like you're eating their flesh. And yeah, so that's one of them. I quite like to be literal in my translation of things and kind of present them in a way that might, at first it's shocking, and not necessarily because it's gory, but it's just something strange to look at. But when you think about it, it also makes you think, oh, actually, the tradition or the concept itself is weird, and that's what I try to portray in my work. And this series was also, it's titled Kalam al-Nas. This exhibition I had with an artist called Dibjani Bardwaj, who was really talented, and the whole theme was folk tales, and my work focused on jinn, with it being a big part of our Omani culture. And jinn are creatures that are hidden. You don't really see them, but you know they're there, and you know that we're all scared of them. So I kind of made the jinn Kalam al-Nas, which is something that we're all scared of, but we don't see it, and it's, you know, we're scared of it, and it's all around us. This was, so in the upcoming slides, it will be my most recent works. And this was a video, which unfortunately cannot be played. But this work was made in a residency we had in Muscat. We spent 1 week in the beach and 1 week in the mountains. And we had to respond to scores. And in this work, the score was open, something which is closed. So again, I'm kind of going back to body ownership and hair covering. And so I'm washing my hair on the beach. And there are like connotations of hair being dirty, that's why you need to cover it, and we're trying to wash it, but at the same time it's not being washed. And I also recently, like at the last year or so, I started to focus more on the emotional aspect of oppression, of not feeling like I'm in control of my body, or, you know, things like that. So the video is very repetitive, and I'm just lying there on the beach with the waves washing my hair. Another thing that was shown in the same exhibition, the works were commissioned by the Wapping Project, and there again, like a series of photographs of me trying to keep my headscarf on. Another work is a work with me and an artist called Elena Brothers, who was a part of the residency, and she was our mentor actually. And during the residency, we noticed that we have the same, very similar headscarves, but it was funny that hers was really short and mine, and her jacket was really short, and my abaya was really long, and my deso, my headscarf, was really long. So that comparison was funny, but at the same time, again, it's kind of it's kind of going back to that conversation that we all relate to each other. And she comes from a Western country and I'm from the Middle East, and it seems so crazy and so different, but like essentially as women, we go through the same thing. And there were three photographs, but I'm just showing two here. This is us comparing the sizes. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rawan. Thank you so much for sharing the story behind every art piece. That was amazing. Thank you. So before we move on to Rayyan, I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions for Rawan, we'll be taking them after Rayyan's session. So please feel free to submit your questions in the chat box, or you can send them via the Q&A tab, and we'll be taking questions later. Rayyan, so you're next.
All right. So hi, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for your time and for joining us. And also, I'd like to thank Anglo-Omani Society for doing this. It's such an amazing opportunity for us to showcase and share our experience in art with our viewers. So to begin with, usually people ask me, how did I start? Is it a talent or is it a gift? Have I been trained and so on? So I wanted to begin with this piece of artwork. I did it when I was in 2007, so I was about 7 years old at that age. So I guess it sort of answers the question I sort of have it within me. But of course, as a 7-year-old, I couldn't reach to this point without guidance. And at my early stages, I had guidance from an artist here in Oman. He's from India, and his name is Shafi Tatrat. And we started off with oil pastel. It was the main medium that I used back then, and mainly on still life and portraiture. And what I really liked about this medium is that it's very easy to blend with other colors and layer it up and so on. And later through the years, I also started exploring charcoal, as you can see in this the left-hand side. And charcoal again is a very easy medium to use because it's very nice with blending. And at that stage of my life, I think using materials that help with blending is quite important. And if I'm honest with you, this drawing over here is actually me. I drew a portrait of myself, and if I'm honest, I think I look like a mystic creature or something. But so after spending a lot of time painting and drawing with these two mediums, I decided to take a further step in my artwork and explore more realistic pieces of work. And over here, I started with oil paint. And this was actually my first painting using the medium oil on canvas. And I quite enjoyed it because, once again, layering it up and showing with oil paint, and especially when it's monochrome, you can easily show special features such as contrast and light and portraiture. And the trick is with oil paint is, some people say that it's really hard to use because it's quite thick and takes a lot of time to dry out. But the trick is to use linseed oil actually to soften it up, and use oil varnish with oil varnish so that it can literally dry up in a few seconds or minutes. And this other artwork is another take of the same person, but in charcoal. I'm honestly all about experiencing materials, trying this and trying something else, and to try and figure out what best suits me. And further on, after several takes of portraiture and still life, because that's basically mainly what I did early in my exposure to artwork, I decided to take a new challenge and focus and give so much time and focus to entering this world of realism, which is called the school of it's called the School of Classical Realism. So, and this school actually started in the late 20th century, the beginning of the 21st century, and it's basically showcasing artwork that focuses on fine skill and beauty and realistic sceneries, whether it's landscape, portraiture, and so on. And obviously, this sort of school in art is a revival of neoclassicism. And neoclassicism actually originated from an era called, a classical era called Renaissance period. And I'm pretty sure that many people are familiar with artists from this period, such as Michelangelo, Leonardo DiCaprio, and these artists actually excelled in the human body and the human anatomy, creating exquisite pieces of artwork that are so realistic. And so I really had a lot of interest in that sort of aspect in art, and I tried to have a go at it. And this painting, I actually did in a course with an Omani artist called Saud al-Hinai, Probably many of you know him. He's a photorealistic artist. He's quite known in Oman. And all of his paintings, if you just look at them, you'd think that for a second, you'd think that it's a picture, not a painting. He's literally that amazing. And what he taught me in this in this private workshop is that in order to have a realistic photo, it's always a good idea to layer things up. So as you can see here on the left side, I started with sepia and burnt amber. These are colors, these brownish tones. And so I did the whole painting in these tones, and he asked me to do it as realistic as possible with all the details. And then what's so amazing is that if you go over that with colors, it actually gives it depth, and that's how it looks really realistic. And yeah, and also when it comes to like my love for understanding history, I actually relate that to something. We had a professor in our university, in the University of Kent in the UK, and he always used to emphasize on history, and that in order to create something innovative, something new, something creative, we have to study our past in order to like succeed in creating something new. And I guess you could call me a traditionalist in that sense, because I truly believe in that, or at least that's what worked out for me. And so after spending so many years in the realistic side of art, I actually started a new venture on other sorts of art. And this is an example of another sort of expression. Perhaps I'd call it abstract art. And these two paintings are actually from a collection I did in Liverpool in the National Day. And the main theme was to come up with paintings that portray Oman and the culture, or anything that's basically related to Oman. And on the left-hand side, I named the painting Sur. It's because part of the Suri culture, there are certain cultural dances, and men would mainly wear the color blue on top of their head and around their waist. And so I really liked that idea and wanted to emphasize it. And whereas the other painting is about Al-Maha, and as everyone knows, Al-Maha is one of the main animals that actually represent Oman. And for these two paintings, I mainly used a palette knife. And so I think with me, part of my artwork is that I love experimenting, and I always love trying out new means of showcasing my artwork. Then came the digital side. I actually bought a pen tablet, and I bought it not because of art, I bought it for my architecture course, my degree. So I decided to give it a try in the creative industry, and I wouldn't say I'm extremely proud of it, but I love what I did over here. The image on the left is my friend, and I tried to paint her, and the one on the right is just some sort of doodling or some type of design I did in my spare time. I think I like pen tablet, but I wouldn't say that it's what I'm trying to focus on, although I am trying to hop onto this new movement of using digital artwork, which instead of the traditional form of art. And then over here is an abstracted portrait of my friend. It actually looks so much like her. And I think this is where my understanding of traditional classic and realistic art comes in handy, because it taught me how to depict the unique features of every single person and portray them in a way that's abstracted, but it still resembles the person. So yeah, so that's basically it. And then coming to the year 2018, actually Al-Ghayth and I, we did an exhibition in London. also by the help and support of Anglo-Omani. And to be honest with you, it was a year that I felt like I achieved something quite huge in my creative side. And the main theme was to create artwork that's inspired by Islamic Omani architecture that's mostly found in mosques. So what I want to add is that this type of artwork, the way I did it is, once again, I tried something new. And I was inspired by another Omani artist. His name is Saif Al-Amri. And he does quite amazing work when it comes to block printing, if you're familiar with that. It's basically carving out like a rubbery material, and then you add a layer of paint on top, and you just print it on paper. And he has some of his work is actually exhibited in the airport. So I used him as an inspiration, but instead of using that technique in paper, I tried to experiment. And I did the same technique on canvas, but I also added another medium, acrylic, because usually when you do lino and block printing, there is a specific type of paint, but I added other mediums just for the sake of experimenting. And to be honest, the result was amazing. I really liked it. And over here are some of the blocks that I hand carved. And the other ones over here are CNC carved. So basically it's a machine that carves out details out of wooden materials, and then I printed it on the canvas. And after this, after 2018, I actually participated in an award, Oman's Ambassador Awards, and I went in with the painting Bohemian, this one. I quite like the colors of it. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, and I guess that's why I called it Bohemian, but it actually won the awards, and I was really happy that I went through that experience. And in the same year, just a few months after, I really liked the idea of working with lino and block printing. So I wanted to share my experience with people, whoever wanted to participate with me. So if you guys are familiar with an artist called Safiya Al-Bahnani, she's quite amazing in her artwork. And what's so lovely about where she works is that she also offers spaces for workshops and stuff if anyone wants to use them. And that's where I basically had the workshop. And this work over here is the work of my participants. Some of them are 7-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and people my age. It was really fun. I really liked sharing my experience with others. And moving on to another aspect of the type of art I'm interested in is photography. So I guess you can see this whole theme of trying out new things. I always try to explore anything I come across. And in photography, I'm mostly attracted to photography related to architectural elements. And the one on the left is actually a modern design of a minaret of a mosque. And the one on the right is an interior of a central dome in the Museum of Islamic Art in Qatar. And I really recommend going to Qatar. Like, all artists should really go there. The architecture is amazing, it's very inspiring, and they have quite a lot of museums there that could inspire you. Moving on, I hopped on to the digital side of art, which is digital rendering. And this is some of the work I did in my architecture degree. It's a well-being center that I created and designed. And the next one is the same building, but this is a bird eye view. And I really like doing artistic stuff, even when it comes to architecture. If you can sort of abstract this building and imagine a bird, like this is the head and this is the main body, And these layers over here are the layers of the feathers in a bird. And I don't know, I just find architecture fun, and it's part of art as well. Moving on, this is another type of rendering I did. And in general, I really want to become better at rendering. And when it comes to architecture, I always value form and aesthetics, because to me, it's really important that when someone experiences a building, they're quite content with what they see. Obviously, it has to be functional, but it's maybe I have an artistic background. That's why I feel like form is quite important when designing architecture. Moving on, this is my final end-of-year project in my last year in the bachelor's degree, and I designed a building that sort of this is a digital rendering of a building that sort of respects its surroundings, and it adds value to the site that it's in. And the way I designed the building is that it mimics the setting it's in, which is the cliff, a chalk cliff. So I studied the structure of the cliff, came up with a few drawings, layering blocks and stuff, and came up with this design. So to me, architecture is art, and it's quite fun to come up with such models and digital renderings. This is the same building, but from the north view. And then this is quite recent, actually. I did this last month, and I've been playing around with digital rendering and creating pieces of furniture, tableware, understanding light and shade, and how to basically create an aesthetically pleasing render that everyone could enjoy. And I think in general, what you could say is that my artwork, there's this thing about trying out new things, experiencing different materials, different mediums, and I guess it's because it's part of who I am. I still don't have a particular style of art, but I think that's all right, actually, because I quite enjoy what I'm doing. So just before we finish my part of this webinar, I'd like to share with you this website. It's called Google Arts and Culture. It's really amazing, honestly, for everyone who's interested in art. It's like a walking library of artwork from all over the world. And you can actually explore paintings from different museums around the world, and you can actually visit places through Street View. And there are so many features that I want you to explore. But what I wanted to say is that as artists, sometimes we feel like we want to produce something that's in the theme of reds or greens or whatever. So if you click on the Explore button and you go to this amazing facility over here, you click on color, it takes you to this scheme, and it showcases all the paintings that are related to that color or within that theme of color. For instance, if we go to red, you would see classical paintings, paintings that are from the school of Expressionism, modern art. This is the Mondrian, which has been used in architecture and fashion. And over here is Surrealism. So it has a quite huge and vast collection of paintings, and I think it would be lovely to have a look at. And yeah, that's all. Thank you, guys. Sama.
Thank you, Rayyan. Thank you so much. That was so inspiring to hear and to see your experience experimenting with different art forms and art types. Okay, so guys, we're going to move to the Q&A session. If anyone has any questions for Rayyan or Rawan, please feel free to submit them in the chat box or the Q&A box. We do have a couple of questions and a couple of encouraging comments on the side as well. Thank you. We'll start off with a general question. I don't know, you guys can decide who's going to answer it. But how do you see the art ecosystem in Oman? What do you think is needed to develop the art scene in Oman? Who wants to take the question?
Rayyan, do you?
Rayyan?
What's the question again? I can't.
Okay, so the question is, how do you see the art ecosystem in Oman? And what do you think is needed to develop the art scene in Oman?
I think we have quite a bunch of creatives in Oman, whether it's, to me, art is anything. It's sculpture, videography, painters, illustrationists, architects. We have quite a few of these individuals in Oman. And honestly, it's something to be proud of. But I think what needs to change is awareness and is just to show love and respect to any type of artwork you see. And I think the main idea with us that there are, I feel like in the recent years, people have started to appreciate artwork, but I think maybe that sort of needs a bigger push, perhaps for exhibitions. Yeah, I think that's how it's gonna improve. I'm not sure. Rawan, what do you think?
Personally, I think if we're not even going to compare Oman to the rest of the world, if we compare Oman's art scene to the Khaliji art scene, for example, Saudi Arabia, Emirat, Qatar, Oman is way behind. We are lacking, and we are lacking in terms of institutions and support. But there are lots of creatives, there are lots of artists, but I feel like we need more things for us. We need more support. We need more opportunities within the country. There are opportunities outside, but since we are from Oman, we need to be kind of established here somehow. And we just need to have those foundations, galleries, to be there, museums, to be there to offer that support.
And I would just like to add a point, and I think maybe if, because like having more museums and galleries, it might be like sort of a mission that takes a longer time. So for now, I really encourage artists to just go for it and to just showcase their artwork, put it out there, not to be shy, not to be afraid of anything, to just be passionate about what they do and share it with others. That's how I feel people will start becoming more aware, is when artists actually take a step and showcase their artwork. And there is no such thing as my artwork is not amazing, or I think it's not good enough, or so on. Like seriously, there is no such thing as that in the art world. Everything is amazing. Anything that someone has created or put in some effort, and it's worth putting it out over for people to see and have a look at. And that's how I think that's the first step in how people will start having more awareness about the art culture in Oman.
Yeah, and I must say I'm quite optimistic with the new arts ministry. So let's hope that will help things move faster.
Okay, thank you guys. Rawan, we have, so this question is for you. There's a lot of questions that are very similar, so I'm just gonna try and summarize it. So since your art talks, somehow, some people would say it's a bit controversial, if you will, around women in the Gulf, around women not wearing the headscarf and all that. So people are wondering, have you ever received any negative feedback, negative comments about your artwork? How do you deal with it? What's your purpose of sharing all these messages through your artwork?
Okay.
And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, the first question, have I received negative feedback? Of course I have. In fact, I saw one in the chat today. But for me, I take it as part of the artwork somehow, because I'm creating this artwork because there's a lack of conversation about these topics. And when I was younger, when I was 13 years old, I would have loved to see someone, like a woman like me, or who I was going to be, talking about these things. They're talking about the things that happened to her, things that happened to her sister, to her friend. And I feel like those things are such a taboo. We never talk about it, and it's always hidden, that it's almost like it doesn't happen. But I just felt like I wanted to let people know that this happened, and this is still happening. And just to start a conversation, that's my whole goal, is to talk about these traditions and those things that kind of don't make sense to me. So when I make the artwork, I myself am trying to understand it. And I really value all the criticism, all of the negative comments and all the positive comments, because again, it adds to because it comes from our culture, and our culture, there's negative and there's positive, and of course. And for a long time, I had this link in my Instagram account that's like one of those anonymous websites where people can put in their whatever message they want. And I got so many messages there. And, some of them were terrible. But again, I think of it as it's part of the artwork, and I really value them. I think that's all. Was there another question?
We do have a few, but I'll go to Rayyan and then we'll come back to you. Rayyan, so what type of art is the closest one to your heart? What keeps you inspired and motivated to create art? I guess it's two questions. If you look at it.
Yeah, I think daily life. I'll start with the inspiration part. Daily life inspires me. Cultures are actually probably the main thing that inspires my work. So whenever I travel, whenever I visit places, I always try to make sure to go to galleries, visit beautiful places with amazing scenes and stuff. And these things actually inspire me. They ignite an inspirational feeling within me. I wouldn't say that there's a particular theme that always inspires me. So my answer would be that daily life, travels, that sort of thing inspires me. And answering the question regarding, was it a specific style that's most dearest to my heart?
Yes.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that I have a style that's the dearest to me. I'm the type of person who sees beauty in everything. Whether it's expressionism, whether it's classical, whether it's abstract, whether it's digital, any type of art, I see beauty in it. So I don't think I have an answer for that question.
Okay.
Theme, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll move to Rawan. Rawan, we have a question that says, as an artist whose art could be very literal in its aspects, do you originally plan for what your artworks are to be, open to interpretation, or is it just what you want to display?
I think as an artist, you can't really control that. Your art will always be open to interpretation. And I love hearing other people's interpretation of my art. Usually when I make something, it's, okay, I have something in mind, but it can relate to many topics or many points of view. So I like to stay very neutral and let the people decide whatever they want to decide, and yeah.
Okay. Rawan, do you feel as an artist there's a lack of artists raising questions about their work due to, let's say, fear of how viewers may perceive their artwork? Maybe they might receive feedback that they're not really willing to accept from other people?
Do I feel like artists are afraid to talk about specific topics? That's what you mean, right?
That, and maybe artists just showcasing their artwork to the public.
Okay.
There's fear of artists showing their artwork because of fear of what other people might think of their artwork.
Yeah, I think that's a issue here we have in Oman, and I'm quite interested in what Rawan would say.
Yeah, I think it's common among artists to kind of feel self-conscious. But what I would say is, why be afraid? Yani, there's no point. If there's something that you can improve on, you will at least have that feedback, or you will, make your art better. And plus now we have social media, which makes it so much easier. You don't have to see someone in the face. You just post it and, put it out there, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, and don't get affected by it. So, because
Yeah.
maybe just like a few hundreds of people saw it, but that doesn't mean that your artwork is not good. There are so many other people that would appreciate it. So never ever think that it's not good enough. Just go for it, have fun with it, explore. It's just amazing. Think at it as an amazing experience, and you're willing to hop into this journey without holding grudges against any reviews or comments or anything. Yeah, just have an open heart, basically.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. We have a lot of questions coming in, so I'm just trying to filter everything. A question for you, Rawan, actually. So you mentioned about culture and environment challenges, which you kind of talked about in your paintings. How was your parents' support in taking the step of removing the scarf and translating these challenges in your paintings?
Wow. I think a lot of my work talks about this because for me personally, it was a really big deal. Like, it wasn't something that you would do to just remove your headscarf. It was a big no-no. It's a big taboo. You don't do it. It's tough. I'm not going to say that it's easy, but that's exactly what I'm talking about in my art, that it's a really long process for you to do that one thing. And again, it comes back to body ownership. So me as a woman, my body doesn't really belong to me. It kind of belongs to my tribe. It kind of belongs to my family, my parents. They all have a say in how I conduct myself. And that kind of applies to women, I think, everywhere. Whether it be on how little she wears or how much she wears, there's always that kind of influence from someone. But I think with us, it's a bit more serious. And yeah, so I'm not the only one. There are so many women like me and so many girls like me. I have a friend who said that it took her 10 years to take off her headscarf. So it's a really long process, and I'm really interested in that. Like, we don't talk about this. We don't talk about, if I want to take off my headscarf, how do I go about it? What happens, Yeah, so that's what I try to kind of explore in my artwork.
Okay. Thank you, Rawan. That was a great answer. Rayyan, we have a question for you. What is your favorite piece of architecture in Oman, modern or otherwise?
I think it would be, this is quite a difficult question, but I think I'd say the NBO, the headquarters in Adeva. It's a modern building, and it's quite fantastic actually, and it belongs to a type of organic architecture, biophilic architecture, and biophilia is actually a word that describes the affinity and the belonging of the human being towards nature. And I feel like the NBO really succeeded in that aspect. They have a lot of elements inspired by nature. The building itself is actually inspired from valleys in Oman, and rocks, and the mountainous nature we have. And so I really feel like it's a dramatic building that portrays the setting it's in. And I think that's how architecture actually collides with art. because you're producing a piece of, you can think of architecture as a sculpture, but on a massive scale, and it's habitable. And so you're creating a piece of artwork that that sort of leaves a feeling that resonates in one's self. And that's the beauty of it. So my answer would be definitely NBO is one of my top favorite buildings in Oman.
Okay. Thank you, Rayyan. We have another question here. How's the art market in Oman? Can a young artist make a living? Is there enough sponsorship for art?
I can talk about that. So as a full-time artist living in Oman, it's not easy, but again, it's not easy for artists anywhere to be a full-time artist. But a lot of what the young people are doing here is that they're supplementing their arts with, for example, if someone is good at photography, they will do wedding photography on the side, for example, to sustain themselves. And what I do personally is I teach art, and I started my own studio with my sisters in 2017. And we've just been teaching art since then. So that's how I kind of get to support myself. And then I'm also a painter. I didn't show any of that in my presentation, but I also do commissions for people. And yeah, I guess you just have to find your way through it. It's not easy to just make a living from gallery shows and such, because there aren't that many here.
Rayyan, do you want to comment on that as well, or?
No, I basically have the same answer. Yeah.
Okay. So unfortunately, we're running out of time, and there's a lot of questions coming in. But we'll take one last short question. If you could describe your art in 3 words, what would they be? Rayyan. We'll do Rayyan then Rawan. 3 words. How would you describe your art?
Experiential, experimental, whatever that word is, spontaneous, and beautiful. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Rayyan. Rawan?
I would say real and true. That's kind of the same thing with sound, and maybe rebellious.
Okay, interesting. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I'm sure we can go on for a couple of hours. There's a lot of good questions, but we can't take them all. But we will be sending a feedback form to everyone who attended the session. And if you guys have any more questions for Rayyan and Rawan, please ask it in the feedback form, and we will send it to them, and they can get in touch with you guys and responding your questions. For those who are wondering on how to become members of the Anglo-Omani Society, you can do so by visiting our website and applying to be members. Thank you so much, Rawan and Rayyan, for being with us today and sharing with us your stories and your artwork. It was an amazing opportunity to get to know some of the artists who are contributing to the art scene in Oman. Thank you everyone who attended today's webinar, and we look forward to having you in future webinars. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys.
Thank you.